Fit, we're in it. It's
Hello,
not
hello. We
Friday,
are
it's
in it.
Monday, but we're here. We are here. Welcome you
We are
guys
here.
to the Session Podcast. I'm Thomas Isaac Castro, licensed marriage family therapist, and this is
Michael J. Fit, infidelity recovery specialist, creator of the 9 stages of infidelity, and a very excited individual right here to share some
uh,
insights and opinions and some good positive information.
yeah, man. We just want to love on you guys and help your relationships with other people, but mostly you'll see with yourself. It's kind of what it all boils down to. Today, we're going to be discussing how to express your needs without guilt or blame, which is an interesting thing because one is I think that we start feeling guilty or blaming ourselves, and then we put that on somebody else who feels guilty and blame themselves, and it's a circle of guilt and blame, and nothing gets done in our relationship. And so our
Mhm.
challenge is to be able to unwind that and wrap that up. This whole month, we're talking about communication and intimacy. Um, and it all finishes with, at the end of the month, with our private session that we will have helping more closely your relationship and your ability to do relationship well. I think ultimately our goal is to be able to create a scenario where you're moving constantly on building your relationship. Right? It's not just about having a skill and saying, "Up, I'm done." Relationship takes constant work. If anybody's ever gardened, you know that there's seasons to everything. There will be a harvest season, there will be a planting season, and everything else that means like get the goodness of the relationship. And so, what we want to do is partner with you while you do the best about your relationship that you could do. And so, here we are to try to help you guys today. And man, I just want to start off with the idea that us communicating our needs is not a bad thing. How we communicate our needs is what usually ends up crashing in our relationship. Fit, do you ever see that in the work that you do?
All the time.
Mhm.
Because both people are resenting each other deep
Mhm.
down inside
Oh yeah,
while
interesting.
asking the other for something, while the other still goes, well, you still haven't given me what I want, so you're asking me for more and you're still being like that?
Yeah,
Or, right? Though they may not say those things, but those are the thoughts that are swimming around in our mind as we're having those conversations, or those conversations, not that we are having them, but they can sometimes just be had inadvertently with the, remember what we're talking about later on in the show, more of the I need, I
yeah,
want,
yeah.
those things. Mhm.
Yeah, it's so interesting, you guys. These are a lot of times the conversations. I like that, Fit, because a lot of times the conversations that we're having our are not the conversations that we're having in our mind. Right? So what one person says, like the husband goes to the wife and is like, "What are you doing?" And that's not really the concern, right? The concern could be, and it could be a generous one. We'll go on the generous side of things, is, "Hey, I love you and I miss you," but we don't say that. We
Right.
say, "What are you doing?" Right? And so there's so many conversations that don't really happen that are really happening. The wife says, "Hey, uh, this isn't happening the right way," and the husband hears, "I'm not good enough," right? And so like that's not really the conversation that was going on, because the husband would be like, "What are you talking about?" Da, 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 right? But he heard, "I'm not good enough." And so a lot of times we're interpreting things with whatever we've been through already, and that's going to be kind of a theme. There's a conversation that we actually have, that came in from our listener, which is, whenever I express my needs, I feel guilty, like I'm asking for too much. Such a common struggle that I think people have. And a saying that I'll help you guys with is, fear gets fear, love gets love, gets guilt. Like whatever you are inside, you're going to start generating on the outside. How would you help talk to that listener, Fit, if the listener says, "When I express my needs, I feel guilty, like I'm asking for too much"? How would you help that person?
What's the guilt behind it?
Mhm.
Why do we feel guilty? Let's investigate what the guilt is. Let's identify what exactly the guilt is and where it is coming from.
Mhm.
So is it, and then let's question, is it really guilt? Or is it embarrassment? Is it some kind of an insecurity as to where if I express this need, you're going to look at me some other kind of way, and that's going to make me feel even less because what I'm going to communicate that I need from you or require from you is going to help me in some way, let's say, for example, with my self esteem. But
Mhm.
then when I go and ask you or communicate that with you, then that feeling might damage my that very feeling of embarrassment to ask or communicate my requirements may even damage my own self-esteem even more.
Mhm.
And so it may not come down to a matter of guilt. Now, if it is guilt, then it's going to take, and this is what my coach helps me with too, is using your will to push through it,
Mhm.
get a different outcome, a much more suitable or ideal outcome for yourself if you're able to push through those moments where it may feel like guilt that stops you from opening up and speaking what you require or requesting support may be something that has stopped you time and time and again. And so it may not be a matter of, maybe what is it? Maybe it's not guilt, but if it is, it's a matter of pushing through it to then begin accepting and requiring support because that may be what it really is all about.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. An angle I take with guilt too is when you feel guilty, you set yourself up to be punished. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's an absolute, but it's frequently the case. And so if you feel guilty or when you feel guilty, you set yourself up to be punished. Why is that? Well, I think that's because inside of you, you know that I did something wrong or I'm doing something wrong. It's not the truth necessarily, but that's the feeling. And when somebody does something wrong, like what's the outcome? Like there's some kind of punishment or there's some kind of negative reinforcement to try to keep you to do that. So you'll sabotage your relationship just because you feel guilty. So that's something that even limits your ability to create communication that's successful. So let's say you want to communicate a need, and you're feeling that on the inside with a guilty feeling. You're likely to go to that person and start being blamey and
Mhm.
start ridiculing or criticizing somehow. You're likely to do that, which makes sure that you don't get the thing that you're asking for, right? So when you feel guilty, you set yourself up to be punished. And so what would be the replacement of guilt? And I think this is really an important thing as we go to breaking the pattern. We'll discuss it a little bit more, but in general, the replacement for guilt is being more aware of what you're trying to create. And I think in our
Mm.
last session podcast, we talked a little bit more about moving from the marriage that you want to create versus um, moving from your position. So my position might be that I feel bad, but the movement that I want to do is I want to create a good marriage. And so
Mhm.
creating a good marriage is us being more curious and investigating and creating the scenario that we actually want versus being afraid that we have to ask a question, right? So I would replace um, I would replace the guilt. So we're taking that away from you guys. And anytime we take something away, we got to put something back in. So what's the put back in? The put back in to me is being inspired by what you're trying to create in your relationship versus what you're afraid that you're going to create. Okay. And that's really a big deal is what's the tone that I want to set in my relationship? Any follow-ups on that before we go to breaking the pattern fit?
Yeah, because it's interesting to evaluate your own energy and go, well, what energy am I coming from? What energy am I bringing to the conversation? What energy am I bringing to my partner? And it's not so easy to identify that so quickly because we feel a certain way and we want to say something, we want to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so if we can slow everything down or slow ourselves down and process more efficiently before we have that conversation to then clear our energy out, because then when we get to that point and we're ready for the conversation, the words may be right.
Mhm.
Where we're not saying things out of still subtly out of blame or guilt.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So how do we break the pattern? One of the common pieces that gets, I feel like it's heavily used, but I think then whenever people try to go apply it as a skill, it gets misused, and that's I statements. So a lot of times people
Mhm.
try to use I statements, but we'll talk about this later a little bit more. But then they change the I statement into a blame or a criticism somehow. And for me, I think what's important is um, that one is that us having a need is not a weakness or a bad thing. And there's two people inside of the relationship. And what I would ask is the person who's receiving the request or the interaction that you grow stronger in your ability to hear the underlying versus how it's presented. So if we're talking to a couple, I'm asking the person who's receiving what they're perceiving as like criticism or harshness to have more of an interest in what the person is going through and less of an interest in what they're saying. And that's actually moving from you trying
Mhm.
to be in the
Yeah.
relationship, right? Okay, but now if we're on the other side of giving it, I know that we're not always in an energy space to say it right, right? Like I can't always get it
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
when I'm frustrated. I have this need, and so it's boiling up with me. And what I would say to that person is don't be so inspired by the fear that good things won't happen for you. Don't be so inspired that by the idea or the fear that your partner cannot change unless you are upset or frustrated, right? Don't be inspired by not having, right? The more you're inspired by not having or it not going well, that's going to create the frantic. And the frantic is what gets the interaction that means like, okay, I feel guilty for saying this, right? Instead, you could switch that over by saying, and this is going back to the last segment of, or last part of our show a little bit, but um, saying like, look, I really want this in our relationship. Like I want the ability to be able to say hard things to each other. And so I might mess up here, but I'm really going to say the hard thing anyways. Right.
Mhm.
I need
Mhm.
kisses every morning. Right. Like that. And you're not doing that. I don't know how to say that well, but that's kind of my request right now. I want to get better at saying it. Just so I'm not saying it as a knock on you. It's more of a growth feeling. And that right there, that sense of like, I want our relationship to grow is different than that sense of you're just not getting it right. And so though it's the same, we need the same behavior in both cases, right? Like we got to get better, but it's a different presentation that moves us together versus moves us apart. And so I think it's really important that if we go to I statements, that we use them correctly and understand it's not a weakness for us to have a need. It's more of a helpful thing for us to be able to express it because sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? My perspective is different than my partner's perspective. But can I share in a way that helps educate without belittling? And that really is an art. Why do you think that
So I'm going
people
to share.
struggle to get their needs fit?
Hmm. Because they think they need something that they don't really need, or they think they need something to get something else, when in actuality there's another avenue of receiving that. They
Mhm.
think they need this to get that, and so it confuses it, because when they start getting what they request, it still doesn't work. I say, wait, but I'm giving you what you asked me, but then there's
Mhm.
something else there. So a lot of the times it's the something else there that's missing, as to where I think I need that. I think that if I get that, it's going to give me this. Well, then let's go straight to the source and get this without having to go through that and find out what this is really all about. Because you already know I'm very big on the root of it, getting to the root of it, right?
Mhm.
But I want to
Mhm.
share a quick little story. It's real time, that just happened with me and my fiance, right? And
Mhm.
so we talk on the phone, and she's overseas, and so our time zones are off right now.
Mhm.
When she's going to bed, I'm waking up, night and day, right?
Oh.
And what happens is she'll, be falling asleep, and I'll be talking to her, and I'll go, hey babe, get some rest, go to sleep. I'll talk to you tomorrow. But I still want to talk to her. I miss her. I love her, but I
Mhm.
understand she's tired. Well, one day I see her falling asleep, on the phone. I said, hey, wake up. I just like, and I go, hey, man, wake up, instead of going, hey, go back to sleep, hey, wake up. You know what I mean? And just like playing. But my energy at that time was not thinking like, well, I need this because of this and that. It was just like, hey, I want a
Mhm.
kiss, or hey, talk to me. Hey,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So we can overcomplicate it.
Mhm.
Um, rather than just going, hey, I really need you to kiss me every morning. Go over there and just start kissing your partner. Give me
Yeah.
more kisses. You know,
Yeah.
like so, and it's the energy. And when I did that, it was really well received by her. She
Mhm.
actually liked that.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, I like that you did that because it made me feel like you want me more and more loved.
Mhm.
And so it's
Love that.
interesting how we can just make that shift, but not overcomplicating it by getting our energy and expressing it from a place of true, genuine love.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
You
Claire, we're
know?
coming to your question too, but that's the difference of, and I think some of this is helpful to you, Claire. But that's the difference of making somebody's forearms go up and then making somebody's protection going up and then getting in the fight, like versus a hug, right? So the art in a relationship, you guys, that's use that visual. That's why I did it right now, so that you can see, like, if somebody's doing this to you and this, see if you can do the art of making them put that down and go like this, right? So that's always a key. And you could feel when somebody's going like this or like this. And if they are doing that in conversation or in energy with you, the art is to make them drop those things. And Claire, this goes well with your question right here. So here's Claire's question. Hi guys, hope you're well. My partner cheated for 2 months until I eventually caught him. I ask a question and he gets really defensive and we end up arguing. I feel like I'm never going to get the truth. He will never go into much detail and it eats me up every single day. He says it's been 3 months. Let's just look to the future. It was a mistake, and at the time, I wasn't happy. We have been together 16 years, and I'm trying my best to not bring it up, but I feel like each day is getting worse. Fit, you want to go first, or you want me to?
I want more. I want more information, Claire. I want to know more, right? But I mean, I could speak on that, but I'd love to know a specific question if you could, Claire, because I don't want to give advice that's unwarranted, and maybe you're just expressing and looking for some validation here. But what would be the question specifically? Maybe I'll reread it, and maybe you can drop your thoughts, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, so Claire, what I would say too is you don't, and this is, Fit, you might have a totally different opinion on this, but I don't want you to traumatize yourself with details. And so in my opinion, the idea is not finding out more information to try to organize things. Again, Fit, you might have a different way, and I'm okay with that. Um, but I think that we have to be inspired by what we're trying to create versus what tried to destroy us. So sometimes, like, and when you're having a wound, and this even happens in real life, sometimes you want to keep looking at the wound. The wound has happened already, though, and we keep investigating it, and you don't necessarily need to investigate it. You need to make sure that you're okay, and you can have those check-in points. But that's the same concept that we just talked about in our relationship. We're accidentally getting our partner to do their forearms up and getting them to fight versus getting them to put that down. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to feel okay, and I don't think feeling okay about the scenario is a good representation of whether you can move forward or not. I think anytime there's hurt, that means there's going to be scarring, and so things that feel like it's not okay will keep bringing up that sense of, like, I need to know more of what's happening. That's your body's way. By the way, it's not bad. That's your body's way of trying to protect you, because it has a sense and it feels like if it has more information, it can help protect you from the next hurt scenario. So your body is naturally going to go to, like, let me just find out more information so I could be clear. And the truth is that having more information doesn't stop another person from doing the things that they've done or will do in their life, right? It has to be a pursuit that they have for being better and wanting more in their life. And so, meanwhile, what's my responsibility if I'm the person who has experienced infidelity or been the victim of infidelity is that I want to make sure that I'm just moving towards doing well in my relationship. Okay. And so, um, how do I do that? Well, it's slowly building my mind, slowly building my heart to a place of, this is what would make me good in a relationship. Okay. And now, what's to happen in your relationship? Who knows? But I think the most important thing is, can I move to a better place? And so there's a lot of healing that has to go on but it won't come through knowing the details from what I work with. And Fit, again, you might have a different opinion, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's great. And focusing on where you guys are going is definitely great. And also having closure of the past and a good understanding of the past. And a lot of the time, we want more information, we want more details to put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
But what haven't we put together? What is actually missing? Is it, and so when our partner doesn't want to give us more information or work with us or communicate with us, and we say, no, 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 we don't need to do all of that, that's still being in a state of selfishness. When I cheated, I was being selfish. And now in the healing process, I want to go about the healing process in my way, not your way. And so that's me still being in a state of selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not, calling your partner anything, non-positive, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes to a matter of what you require. Somewhere along the lines, he learned that he could do this or things like this and go, hey, I'm going to use my dominant authority over you to end this conversation and say this is not important enough to talk about, and expect you to just succumb to my demands, is what they are, and expect you to just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. uh, and what's going to happen is there's going to be cheating again, there's going to be betrayal again, there's going to be something else again, because being okay with it, you're trying to convince yourself you're okay with it, and that is going to continue to grow, not in a positive way like a seed and a plant and beautiful leaves, but it can grow into resentment and bitterness and depression
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of not good things. And so, Claire, you have a choice to make. I mean, and you don't have to do anything, but I would say there is a choice before you to take a different approach and stop and say, no longer am I going to ask you for details. I require those. And I'm going to be right here, ready for you to meet me. And until you meet me, I cannot meet you any further until you come and meet me. And it may take you breaking through a certain amount of discomfort in order to find that place and truly receive what you require. My apologies, I blacked out just a minute right there. I was getting a little too into it. But that's what it is. And I know it, when I speak this way, it is very direct, but this is my way of making it as simple as I can. And I know there's a whole lot going in here and it's not so easy, but this is the best that I can give you for this situation. The both of you, Claire and Marie, if you're
Yeah.
both going through this, all of my love goes to you, but this is what I would best recommend from the top to the bottom of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a long one,
Yes.
but
No, it's useful for people to be able to hear specifically about their experience. And so I do think it's important that um, we don't get in a pattern of codependency, you guys, which is victim, perpetrator, rescuer. So if I go to the rescuer base, only two people could play it. So let's say me and Fit are the ones playing it. Victim, perpetrator, rescuer. Fit goes to the victim base. I go to the perpetrator base, or the rescuer base, right? So, but if I go to the victim base, Fit's going to go to the rescuer or perpetrator base. Like, we just constantly move on these bases, and sometimes that uh, things, abusive scenarios, including infidelity, abusive scenarios require codependency as a blood flow. Basically, it cannot continue without codependency. So what you described right now, Fit, was beautiful because it's empowerment, right? And empowerment isn't a requirement for somebody else to do. It's a requirement for me to be able to jump out of the game, right? So if the game is like we're doing victim, perpetrator, rescuer, I'm feeling hurt, you're the perpetrator scenario, or I am being hurt, you're the perpetrator scenario, or you're rescuing me, or whatever, I'm rescuing you, whatever that scenario is that we keep doing, we have to jump out of the game. And so I think that what you're saying is valid in the idea that there needs to be some empowerment that happens in order for us to be successful in our relationships. And we can't stay in a relationship where we're playing codependency game constantly, and the outcomes of that do not feel good. And so, yeah, I think it is super hurtful. and when we're hurting, there aren't any answers. When somebody's hurting us, there aren't any answers for goodness for that scenario, because the truth is we're in a relationship with somebody who hasn't moved to that spot to do it differently yet, right? And so for us, it's battle to be at our best in those moments. Okay, and I know I've seen plenty of people go through these scenarios to know that eventually you will be okay. Okay, and we go stronger because of it. Um, there's another question in there, Fit. If we want to hit that question before we move on to our energy spike.
Yeah, so will I ever know the truth? How can I believe someone that lied to me for months? So
Mm,
you answer your own questions. I would suggest, coming from someone who's personally been in those shoes, it is when you conclude that the truth that you received, the details that you received, is enough for you. You conclude when you believe it or not. You conclude, okay, and it's not about so much of how can I believe someone, right? So when we do that, we are talking about empowerment, disempowerment. We are already setting ourselves up for failure if we are going, how can I? Think of your brain, your body as just the manager of the store that is you, the company that is you. And so when you say things like, how can I? You are coming from a place of doubt, uncertainty. And so think of your brain and body as taking that as orders from you to be uncertain. Okay, so now I'm in a place of uncertainty and I'm saying, and I'm searching for the answers of how can I, which is good, but then answer your own questions. How can you? I can when I conclude. I can when I empower myself. I can when I choose to believe that what you are telling me is true. It is a matter of choices. And though it may not be so easy to choose something once and then magically the next day it's just automatic for you, we have to choose it again and again and again until it chooses us. It is a matter of teaching our brains what to believe, not retrieving what our brain has been believing. And then
mhm.
that's how we get into a state of receiving when we make that shift. The
Yeah.
why is what is worst for me. And it's the same thing. A lot of people come to me with the why. Yeah, we'll conclude the why, but what are you going to do with the why after that?
Mhm. Yeah,
So it
it's
is a
interesting.
matter of gaining closure and acceptance through you when you decide that it is enough. Mhm.
Yeah. Man, I love that people will come in here and get their questions answered. I think like that's the benefit of what we're doing, or at least for us to be able to have a conversation with them and direction and be able to give people direction. Fit. I mean, this is a huge deal that we're able to even scrap our own plans. We have something for you guys if there wasn't questions, but we want the questions more than we have. We want to give you the stuff that we have prepared because that's going to come no matter what. Let me go back to MRD question, which is, um, will I ever know the truth? How can I believe someone that lied to me for months? And so none of this is like a thing for me that is I don't want to criticize the experience for MRD, but what I will say is this is there are certain things that are crazy makers for us as people. And one of the crazy makers is trying to figure out somebody else's imperfections and and let's just I mean, maybe that's a light way of saying that, but like infidelity or or addictions or any other abusive type of scenarios, us trying to figure those things out will never make sense. Like it won't be a 1 + 1 = 2 type scenario. Why?
Yeah.
Because for humans, we're way more complicated than that, and so even what would make sense to us to do won't make sense for the next person. I think if you guys ever are able to listen to me and Fit, that's the benefit of both of us working together because there's a little bit of a even though we might have a core belief, there's a little bit of a difference about how we approach it, and that's going to be based on our experiences in our life and everything else. And so even for any two people in a room, the reason that things happen or the idea of trying to figure out lies is just a crazy maker because it will never make sense. And even the truth of what's going on with somebody else doesn't set us free, right? So the challenge here is a focus opportunity. right? Can I start focusing on building who I want to be in the relationship that I want to be a part of? Maybe that's not, and this is scary, maybe that's not what this person. Maybe it's just in general. That doesn't mean jump to a conclusion of like, okay, I need to end this relationship. But it does mean let me just start moving in a way that means faithfulness in my relationship and goodness in my relationship. And as that grows, I promise you guys, the other people fall off or their habits fall off because there's just not a fit anymore. Going back to the codependency scenario, any addiction scenario, including cheating, happens constantly because of the victim perpetrator rescuer. Or what happens if I don't play that game anymore? Now they can't cheat on me anymore because I'm not in that game. Now their own struggles with themselves, and if they're not battling you, they don't have that ability to do that anymore. Right? They don't have the ability to battle you and point fingers, or you're the reason why, and this is why it happened, and that kind of thing. It's not an interaction between the two of you. And then your feelings of what you want to be in a relationship with will help drive what's next for you. Okay. Now, this isn't a day thing. Like, it's not like do this today and then tomorrow it changes. We're planting seeds right now for the growth that you're going to see later. And I need everybody who's asking questions and or watching and not asking questions and just getting the information. I need all of us to be patient with the process of getting to a better place and a better relationship, because that's coming if you are able to focus on the inside out part of all of this versus having the results of like, I need to fix this person and I need to get over it. I need to figure out how to get over these lies. Those are crazy makers because we don't control, or we're putting too much power in somebody else's hands to make us feel better. Nobody can make us feel better ultimately more than what we can generate through our, and I'm a biblical person, but through our spiritual being, right? And so the more that you're able to tap into that, you're going to get to the place that you need. And I really believe in that for all of us as people. It might not be easy now, but this is what's preparing us for the next moment. Okay. And so let's stay in being able to build ourselves and our heart space for that as much as possible. And love that MRD, Claire, and Marie were able to like come in and just be able to answer or ask questions, because I think even though this is the benefit of groups fit, this is why we're doing our end of the month thing, because sometimes people have a question for me that I didn't know to ask. Right. And then somebody else asks the question like, oh, shoot, that's me too. I didn't know how to put in those words, but that's me. And somebody else is in my position and I'm being able to interact around that. Like, that's so beneficial and so useful. And so I think that that's the benefit of us being able to do this and love on people this way. And again, our end of the month, I think that's what makes it so special. So we can get really close to these stories as well.
Yeah. And
So, yeah.
Claire, Marie, and MRD, and those of you who else have questions, please get them in, because that really does it just I receive those questions, and I feel that we're able to help. And it's interesting because if you notice, right, and a lot of the times in the comment, someone will respond to the other comment, I'm going through that exact same thing. And collectively, us as human beings, I don't know if it's the stars, if it's the top of the season, whatever it is, if you notice, a lot of us go through the same thing. Like, I don't know if you notice this, but a lot of the clients that I'll get in like groups, it's interesting. It's like they all have those same struggles or issues during that specific time. It's interesting. Or like, when I used to work at Quiznos, right? People would come in all at the same time randomly, not like lunch or breakfast or dinner or whatever. It'd just be like a weird time that people would all just instinctively, and they wouldn't know each other. They wouldn't come in together from different places. And it's just interesting how, in some way, shape, or form, we all share these same things. And it is a matter of not fixing it. It's not about fixing it. It is about who we become. Because we go through life, and our journey is our journey of life, right? And what we go through in this moment, we want to go, okay, let me fix this, and then we're done with that, and I can move on with the rest of my life. But then when you move on with the rest of your life, other things pop up that can trigger those things of the past, and then bring you back.
Mhm.
So it's not a matter of fixing it, because it can break again if it's
Mhm.
not healed. If
Mhm.
the person hasn't adapted and become the kind of person who can work through those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so
Yeah.
important that we use our hardships to not necessarily, um, like, try to avoid or figure out what life is, or instead use them to really sharpen and strengthen us. And that's always a good question with hard things that we can't figure out is to ask that question of like, okay, how can I allow this to build me? Right? Like, how can I allow this to make me better? Um, and then do that, then allow that, right? Because sometimes we want to go back to the problem, say, okay, wait, fix that problem so I could feel better. But it's not about being problems are put in front of us so that we can actually be strengthened. All hardship is there so that we can build. That's the human condition, is that we need to be built around some of the more difficult things that happen to us, even in the worst scenarios. And I know that's hard to say. I know it's a hard experience depending on the hardship that you've been through, right? But
Yeah.
the truth is those that's what they're there for. And if we can ask that question and then use it that way, you're going to find so much about yourself and so much about who you're about to become, that you will find a joy and a peace in life that's like no other. Okay, and that's the goal, by the way, of life, is can I experience joy and peace, right? But I'm not going to get it by understanding somebody else's imperfections and lack of loyalty. All right. So I definitely want to invite and keep inviting everybody to our end of the month. We got a date for that, Fit. It's the day after
26.
Christmas, the
Yep.
26th at 4 p.m. We'll be talking about communication and intimacy, um, with in a private session. I put the link in earlier. I'm going to put the link in again um, it, just in case the people didn't get it. But I think that's really important for us to be able to discuss, is that, hey, you guys, you got an opportunity to be able to get in closer. Okay, Marie has another question. What you call it, repairing the relationship I stuck. Uh, we're working on our marriage to stay together. It has come a way. Is it for the better at the moment? Um, so I didn't understand that first part. So would you call it repairing the relationship? Yeah, I would just say let's build a new one. Like, repairing seems like we're responding to everything that has gone on. And I know it's semantics a little bit, but words have so much power that's important the way that you use your words. So why don't you just start building a relationship and build it on solid ground right now, right? Never mind what has happened. Like, obviously, it wasn't built on the things that it needed for the moment. But this is why I think if we ask the question, how can things build me versus, what happened or trying to figure it out, it's beneficial, because now you can say, look, that whatever was built then, I don't want to do it that way. Now I want to fight for my marriage and build it a different way. And who knows, like, this one doesn't have to necessarily be, it's not successful or not. It just is, I'm not going to build it the same way that we built it before, right? Versus trying to repair the old one, right? So, so I would say, focus on building a relationship, start from ground zero, and really have that as a focus versus like, man, we did this before and that didn't work. Da, 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 da. Like that part's not important. Like, we could just start building right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the thing is too, so you put relationship and marriage, and those are two completely different things. Relationship is the way that you relate to your partner. You think about it, relate, relate how I relate, how we relay, relationship, and how we flow on our ship, how we sail and swim, how we right on our ship. So the relating part in communication, the way we behave, the things we do, our interactions, our responses to each other, what we do, how we do it, when we do it, right? Our relationship. And it's, not all the times about what we do, but when we get into that flow, when we're connected, that's what I would say it's rather than going, how can we, restructure our marriage? Rather, how can we connect? How can we relate in a different way, and that would rebuild our relationship? So think about it not like, okay, what does that look like? But reconnecting, finding new ways to reconnect. And then that if you do that, then the relationship will be rebuilt naturally.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, MRD, like anytime there's a trauma scenario, which when we're experiencing um, a hardship in our relationship is, I know the word is overused, but the truth is our body has an experience that shakes it up and rattles it up, um, and the hardship, will continue. Um, so there's so many ways for us to be able to build out of that, but it is a practice on the focus of building. So you guys, I've said the word focus, but I'll tell you, like, that's one of our superpowers as people, is our ability to create a certain focus that generates certain things for us, right? And so the way out um, of body experiences that make it so prevalent and present on our mind, the way out of that is an intentional focus on creating experiences that create something else or a different feeling, right? So you can't reverse body experiencing experiences like the emotional abuse that accidentally happens in infidelity. You can't replace it by thinking different. You have to replace it by moving different, right? By experiencing different. So the more you're experiencing and creating experiences in your relationship based on the focus that you're doing, you're going to start seeing those thoughts, that feeling of it just being like right at you. You're going to see that starting to reduce a little bit more. And then you're going to feel a little bit more inspiration, right? But it all comes from belief that you can have a different relationship versus belief or just allowing your body to have the memory of, hey, this is what just happened, right? And these aren't things that are conscious. That's why I'm explaining it this way. I don't think that we're actively choosing to have that hard scenario, um, but we can grab it with consciousness. Like we can focus on, look at this is how I want to actually feel. You could even draw it up, and then say, okay, this is what I'm going to do today to create an experience that will help me to get to that eventually. Right? It's not an over the night thing. It's more like lifting weights and going to the gym. You got to constantly work at it. And then you'll see that you're going to do a wiring in your mind that has a different result for you.
Yeah. And as I like to say, the work is for life.
Mhm, mhm,
It's for it is. But you get to a point where you enjoy the work and you
mhm.
become fascinated in all things about yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, I continue to do the work. I have a coaching session with my coach today,
Mhm,
and it's interesting because you get to a point where you fix it, right?
mhm.
Where things are much better in your life. But then you go, well, how can they get even better? And that's where I'm at. And I want them to continue to get better and better and better and better, not from a place of forcefulness, but from a place of like, hey, this is exciting to me. I love this because I
Yeah,
notice that the more that I evolve, the more that I heal, the better life gets.
yeah.
And yeah, there may be this struggle or this thing that continues to show up in your life. And you see it and there's like, why does this keep happening? Man, life is just happening to me. It keeps happening again and again and again. And so
Mhm.
nothing's ever going to change. And so then we reach that place of hopelessness.
Yeah.
But if we can develop a new pattern that morphs into a new habit of going, this situation I don't like and it does not feel good, but there's something in here for me.
Mhm.
Ah, life, God, the universe is trying to show me something, is trying to give me something.
Yeah.
And though this situation right here doesn't feel good, but if I stay in it long enough and in consciousness, look for the benefit, look for the question that will give me the most empowering answer. Like, how can I use this situation, though it may not feel good, to my advantage so that it does not continue to keep showing up in my life?
Mhm.
And that's what's really cool about making those conscious decisions in those moments and shifting your energy, shifting your decision to then shift into a new reality based on those compounded results or outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
our word of the week is actually clarity, my wife and I were having Bible study on Sunday, or yesterday morning, and I think um, one of the takeaways, and I think this is a huge deal because it helps us get clarity, right? And whenever everything starts going bad, we start focusing on the worst parts of our life, and so it's really hard to have a different kind of experience. But how should we be moving? And this happened in our Bible study is like the more that we are a reflection of God, basically, like that is my goal is to reflect that,
Mm,
right? And so when you start going from that perspective, is like, okay, that's a different perspective than like something's hurting me and I need to fix that scenario, right? And so that would be mine, and everybody can have their own, but we have to find something that inspires a real focus that grows us and moves us in the right direction that ultimately helps us to experience our ability to create, connect, and contribute to this world. Because
mm,
everything else that takes our creation or our creativity and our connection and our contribution away from us really drains us because we're made as people to be able to create, connect, and contribute constantly. Well, when we're not doing those things or we feel inadequate or it's not going well for us, we're not able to be creative, then it's an upsetting scenario and it just drains us, right? So we can't be informed by the hardest things that happen in our life. We have to be informed by who we want to actually be at our core. And the ultimate discussion from that Bible study was that it becomes a heart set. It really is like, am I working on my heart of being, and how am I allowing this hard scenario to help build and strengthen my heart in this scenario? Okay.
mhm.
So that's the challenge is can we find what ours is in that moment? Again, if God is not what you do, what do you do? And then does it match with having an experience of joy and peace in your heart ultimately? Not that you don't have hard things, right? It's not fake, it's real, it's strong, right? So but more that I can endure hard things and I can get through and I still have my peace, right? And I can still find my joy. So super important for us to be able to do that. Fit, do you have any last words before we take off?
I always do.
Oh, yeah.
I'll leave you with this one.
Mhm,
Um, my partner doesn't make me anyway.
mhm,
I respond to my partner. My partner does not do anything to me, cannot make me do anything, cannot make me a certain way. I choose to respond to what they do, what they did, what happened. And how I choose is fill in the blank to empower yourself.
mhm. Okay. Yeah, I think
That's what I
that's
will
huge.
leave.
I love it. All right, you guys. It was good being able to spend some time with you guys. We look forward to you guys coming in at the end of the month in our private session. Take care. Until next week, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, you guys.